As you could see right behind him, he is in Jamaica right now. Carlos Cooper joins me from the other side of the world. Carlos, it's a pleasure to have you on, and welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
Well, of course, Jamaica is a great country. We were just speaking off camera, the beauties of Jamaica, but also the negative sides, and we're going to go ahead and talk about everything that there is to really understand what it's like to be a Jamaican. What is the culture like in Jamaica? The food? What's it like to be Jamaican?
I mean, obviously, we start with the positive. The food is great, with the history we've had with all the different people that have passed through Jamaica and the Caribbean. They've left behind a lot, like spices, jerk chicken, stuff like that. Yeah. And you like Jamaican music, don't you?
Of course, of course. Bob Marley, as we spoke about.
Yeah, yeah. You should go to a Jamaican party.
Well, I've heard they're quite hectic over there.
Yeah, some of them.
Right. So explain to me who you are. You're 19 years of age. You're, of course, Jamaican. You've been playing for college teams. You've played in primary school teams. And we're going to build up to, who you are today. But tell me about the time growing up in Swallowfield, Kingston, Jamaica, when you were raised in the local community.
Well, there's a lot, but I won't say a lot. But what I will say is that with me, it was a bit of a cliche. The cliche here in Jamaica is there's a generation of men grown by women, the absence of a father in the home and stuff like that. But I had a strong mother. She had five of us. I was like the middle child. And I've always thought myself to be different from everything I see around me. And there's a lot of bad. But there were also good. There's some good figures around. I remember being 6 years old. Not very vividly, but I remember being 6 years old around the time of the 2010 World Cup. And I mean, if you're Jamaican at that time, you're supporting Brazil. And I remember all I could hear about is Kaka, Ricardo Kaka.
Of course.
He's probably the first football player I ever knew about. And as I've grown, I've grown to understand the game a bit more, and I admire his playing style. And there's not a lot of players that I'd say I fashion my game off of, because the way I learned football is just pure recreational. In the streets, ball bounce off the wall, bare feet. Just, I think, coming from that background, my creative sense that I bring to the game, superb, because, there's some situations you get yourself into when you're on the streets that you kind of have to think. There's some big guys, you can't go shoulder to shoulder with them. You have to be quick, and yeah. So, and Swallowfield was rough. I remember being younger, and I leave home without breakfast, because obviously we play football every day, and I leave home without breakfast, and I just play, and I'd play, and I wouldn't remember that I was hungry, or maybe occasionally when the sun got a bit too hot, we'd take water breaks, but we wouldn't stop playing until it was dark outside. And then the street lights would come on and we continue. And then our moms would come looking for us. And my mom was a popular one, because she'd be screaming my name on the top of her voice from where we lived at the time, because the football field wasn't very far. And yeah, fun times.
But now, has that changed? When you look back at it now, when you're seeing people ages 5 and 6 years old, do they still do the same thing, or has that, is there a bit of a revolution for the youth generation in Jamaica?
I mean, I have just one word still. It's called technology. That has changed a lot. Kids don't go outside anymore. They're just
Simple as that.
Yeah.
Actually, I was speaking to a professional Malaysian player the other day, and he was telling me how much technology has really, really changed. And he grew up in Germany, and he was telling me that this generation of German players now, the just now, like not the Mesut Ozils, the players like Florian Wirtz and all these German players, they're nowhere near as good as what Mesut Ozil was at his prime, because they got technology, because they're addicted to their phones, because they're addicted to playing FIFA or Fortnite, wherever they might play. Whereas the ones like Mesut Ozil and these amazing generational World Cup winners, all they did was ever play football. And I can't really get my head around that. The fact that, all you did was football. Is that really what it was like for you? All you ever did was football, no technology, of course, no TV, no reading, just football?
No, I agree. I remember I spent most of my childhood years just outside, and I had a friend. We used to call him Lucky. He's a bit older than me, and he walked by a lot of times, and I'd be there because I love the game so much. And probably it was the absence of technology because it was a bit expensive. It's hard to afford back in those days. Even harder now. But then I didn't have much access to that. I'd have friends that have FIFA that I'd play occasionally, but most of the times, all I really wanted to do as a kid was go outside and kick a ball. It didn't matter if it was a size 5 actual football or a tennis ball or a rubber tennis ball. I just wanted to kick a ball. I remember my friend Lucky. He called me a ball shark, and he made fun of me to the other guys. But like we're good now. But I've seen where he's grown to understand that because of my love for it, and I guess I was obsessed. But my obsession with football has made me the player I am today. And I agree with the difference in generation. Like back then, Ozil, I'm not very familiar with his upbringing, but yeah, it must have been pure football, and I relate to that in some parts. And I've seen where I've become, the times have changed, so the technology has had its impact on me as well. So yeah.
Not similar, quite similar to the field that's behind you. At school we have a big field, we go and play football and, do whatever we like, essentially. But in a footballing sense, I was playing with my friends the other day and we're having a kick about. We use our school bags as goals.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, this German footballer, this Malaysian footballer who was in Germany, yourself included, all the people that I talked to basically play cage football or street football, where they're always playing football on the streets. They're in cages. As you've said to me later down the line, that you felt restricted, that you couldn't have all these touches. You were used to getting the feel of the ball in the cages, in the street football. And I just couldn't get over the fact that this is you. This is how you're brought up as a footballer. Not say I'm going to be a footballer. However, we have a completely different side of the game. We might be a bit more of something. You might be a bit more technical. We might be faster. You get what I'm saying? So do you feel privileged in a sense to be able to have the street football, to be able to play barefooted with balls from such a young age?
What I will say is that I don't think there's a one way or a correct way to, be introduced to football. But the way that I was very fortunate enough to, play on concrete streets or whatever we could find, whatever space we could find. Really, it wasn't always as grassy as you see behind me. I probably didn't touch a grass pitch until probably age 8 or 9, because it was just I knew what I knew at that time, And as you said, it made me a lot more technical because it had to think a lot. And I think the difference is when you start playing on a bigger pitch, you realize that you have to think not as quickly as when you're playing in the streets, but you have to think like down the line because it's a big pitch. There's different things that happen in different phases of the game and areas of the pitch. So yeah, that transition was good though, because I had great coaches along the way to guide me.
You've mentioned to me a few different colleges and high schools that essentially got you the kickstart that you needed to become a footballer. And the team that you're at now is Phoenix All Stars. They've produced players like you said to me, Leon Bailey. But you said that they're one of the best teams around. What do they provide as a starting point? What do they provide that the other local clubs don't? Is there more of a financial backing for them?
Yeah. So, okay, the steps for me was at the age of 12, I played for my home team. It's called Swallowfield FC. Played on the 13s. And then after that summer of 2017, I played for my high school team, Iden High School, in the under 14 competition. And then I moved on to play to the under 16s. And then obviously COVID happened. And I remember being in a phase where I didn't exactly know what I was doing, but I'd get up every day because of my love for football, and I'd just be playing football. Whether I'd find friends to play with or I'd just be playing with myself, because it was, obviously being in lockdown that time, you're very isolated. So football played a big role in me getting through all of that mentally. And yeah. And then after the lockdown, they started to play again, and I moved schools. I moved from Arden High School to Clarendon College. It's not actually a college, but there's this thing in Jamaica where they call some high schools colleges. So yeah, Clarendon College, and that was a big shift for me because before going to Clarendon College, I had spent all my life in Kingston. Kingston is where I'm from, where I live now, but I had to shift parishes to go to school in Clarendon. And I remember at that time it was really rough because before then, like I mentioned, it was just every day. It was just okay. You come home, you have a family to support you every day. You see your siblings, your mom, all that. But when I went to Clarendon, it was just the guys. I really had to like. I'm grateful for the teammates I had down there because they made it feel like more than just a football team and more like a family because obviously all of us are away from our families. So I think the natural thing as human beings is to come together as a family. And yeah, that's what happened. And I saw a lot of success at my time in Clarendon College. I won my first trophy there in 2021, the Champions Cup. Beat Dintil in the Champions Cup finals 1-0. And then successive year, we had 2 more triumphs, winning the Da Costa Cup in 2022, along with the Oliver Shield. And the Oliver Shield is basically like football. High school football in Jamaica is divided into a rural and a more urban type of competition. So the urban competition is Manning Cup that I never had the pleasure of playing because of COVID-19 coming out in 2020 when it did. And then you have the Da Costa Cup, which is a rural competition. And Clarendon College plays in the Da Costa Cup, which is a rural competition. And at the end of each competition, there's a final match. They call it the Olivier Shield final. And we won the Da Costa Cup and we came to Kingston to play the champions of the Main Cup. And we beat them 3-0. In proper fashion. It was a great match.
Well, 3-0 in a cup final sounds quite interesting. Talk me through that. Talk me through the build up to this final. To go ahead and win 3-0. I mean, usually from finals you'd expect, from myself anyway, in England we'd expect a 1-0 or a penalty shootout, but 3-0 is quite a thrashing in a cup final.
No, I had fun that game, and I think what really, I feel like that season had a really great season building up. I think what really made us shift gears though is it's unfortunate, but I think what really made us shift gears and gave us that thing to fight for was the loss of one of our managers. So down in Clarendon College, as I told you, it's a family, but also there's people that keep the family together. There's managers, there's Mr. Palmer, and a lot of managers that play a part in preparing us mentally, make sure that we have all the stuff we need for games and all that. And I remember it was a tough time for the team because a day before the Da Costa Cup final, we heard sad news that we lost our manager, and it shook us up. But at the end of the day, we really came together and decided that we're here now. It's unfortunate that we lost him, but what we can do is honor him. And we did that. The day after, we won the Da Costa Cup final 3-0 as well. And, our target was to win the 3 trophies, the Champions Cup, the Da Costa Cup, as well as the Oliver Shield that season. Fell short in the Champions Cup, however. Did you remember when I mentioned Whisper, Dujon Richards? Kid from Phoenix as well. Yeah, he's now at Chelsea. Played his first game with the U18s yesterday. And, I mean, he had a night. So he played for Kingston College, and obviously we clashed in the semi-finals of the Champions Cup, and he had a night. That's all I can say, he had a night. So, I mean, falling short in the Champions Cup, then having triumph in the Da Costa Cup, we had to take whatever was left for us, and it was the Oliver Shield. And I remember that day because, like I said, the managers, they prepare us. Like, the day before a game, it's almost like game day because the phone's off, you can't talk to anybody. It's just the boys, and it's just pure football every day. And then, the day of the game, it's when you start to lock in, you stay off your legs and you stay mentally and physically ready. Because, on the day of the game, there's not much you can do but prepare. Like, there's not much you can do that will change. Like, you can't train the day of the game and get any better, really. So what you can do is prepare mentally, and yeah. So that day, it was just vibes in the morning until it was time for business. Got serious, and yeah, we just had fun that game.
You mentioned that you prepare mentally, for a game. What does that mean for you? Because some players have superstitions. For example, I always give an example of a goalkeeper. They put their left glove on before the right glove. For you, was it
Nah.
reading? What sort of things happened to you?
So I'm still experimenting with that, but what I'll say is, in Clarendon College, the tradition is the day before games or 2 days before games, no phones. The phone is with the managers, and it's just the boys. Just become like you sleep a lot because obviously you have 48 hours, so you sleep a lot. So I guess sleep plays a big part. And for me, I'd say a lot of self-talk, because if you don't have a phone and being in the area that we are, the technology area where you do most of the things on the phone, sometimes even though there's guys around you, most of the times you'll just have yourself. So a lot of self-talk, like positive self-talk, and I try not to exaggerate like the event to come, because I've had experiences where I've placed importance on games and it turned out to be too much importance, and it had me, shell shocked at the day of the game. So I took that, and I learned, and yeah. So nowadays, the day before games, it's you lock in your zone in. Whoever you need to talk to them that time. You let them know that, from this time to that time, this is what I'll be doing. I'll speak to you later. And a lot of music. Yeah, a lot of music, I'd say. And what I'll say also is that on the pitch, I'm the type of player that feeds off my teammates' energies. So, you have players that if they play good, the team plays good. I consider myself to be that kind of player. And so, yeah, so the day before the game, it's, chilling with the boys, talking over, just aspirations and just visualizing yourself. Yeah, stuff like that.
Right. So, we've spoken about you learning on the streets to play football barefoot. Sometimes that might help you as a player. I'm sure in a moment it probably didn't. But, looking back on it, when you get the boots, I'm sure you can play better because you've learned, technically without anything on. Primary school, you were playing with the tennis-sized rubber balls. So I'm presuming, not the ideal of situations to be in, but as you said, you take to hand whatever you have. And in 2010, you were walking through the streets with your mother, and everyone was like talking about Kaka this, Kaka that. 80% of Jamaicans supported Brazil. 80% of Jamaicans. Why? Why was Jamaicans not supporting their own country?
It's not necessarily us supporting another country. I think it's more of us not being at the World Cup in 2010. We had history of having a Brazilian coach, and I don't think we have a style per se. Like, there's not like a Jamaican style of football, but if we did have a style, it would be something close to the Brazilian style, where it's joga bonito, play just freely, and yeah, I think the Brazilian style and the Brazilian team that time just resonated with what we find. Like, yeah, I think it just resonates with the Jamaican style, per se, if there was a Jamaican style.
And what were those 20% of fans like? Were they ultras? I mean, we call them ultras here, where they're crazy for their country. They got the pyros, they got the flares, they got the scarves, they got the flags, they got all of that. Would you consider the 20% then to have been like that? Or now, are your fans ultras?
No, I think the 20% would be the guys that didn't want to be a part of the 80%, just supporting teams like, other teams that could be. That's that.
Right. So Jamaica was an interesting time. 80% of Jamaicans supporting Brazil, a weird one, a sticky situation to be in, I'm sure, for the country's FA, looking at this thinking this is probably not the best of situations to be in. Would like our country to be supported by our people. Did you not feel that as a Jamaican, or even looking back at it, you think maybe I should have supported my own country? And I know you mentioned that Brazil were in the World Cup, and you've only been in one World Cup, but you're looking into the 2026 World Cup optimistic, ready to go. We're going to talk about that later. When you look back at this, do you not think that the Jamaican team could have done a bit better to get to the World Cup and make their people proud?
Sure, but at the time, I was only 6. I didn't understand much. But I think as a country, we're very patriotic. So it's not that we don't support our own nation. It's just, I think, how the culture is in Jamaica. We like to be involved in a lot of stuff. And even if we're not involved, per se, the name Jamaica wasn't in the World Cup. So we just opted for something that resonates with us. And the Brazilian team was that something.
You spent time as a captain and a left winger at the under-13s tournament for Swallowfield, your home village, making your people proud. However, you said it wasn't a great run. Talk to me what happened in that tournament. You've gone from 2010 World Cup to now being 13 and now playing Field Village.
So I think around that time it was 2017. And what happened with that team is that we just didn't have, like, administratively in the club at that time, everything wasn't straight and sorted out. Like, to get to games, we would like rent taxis, and however much players could fit in the team, trunk and so it was just a mess with the club overall. But we had the support of the people 100%, even when we were losing. We lost a lot that season because a lack of preparation. We train, and sometimes there wouldn't be a coach. There would just be like senior players stepping up in leadership. Obviously, I was one of them. And so I just think the other teams in the competition that year, they were a bit ahead. They were working as a collective. There's coaches, managerial staff, and stuff like that. And that edged us. But in terms of passion, playing your hearts out on the pitch, we're that kind of team, I won the hearts of the fans.
A year later, you were playing in a Pepsi competition. Now you're having the interest of Coca-Cola, Pepsi coming towards other nations, to try and basically boost their brand. And they've come to Jamaica. And you were part of the under 14s team, as a centre mid in high school. But you were restricted to your role. But what was the tournament, before we talk about yourself, what was the tournament like for you lot as under 14s?
I mean, it was a step up from Swallowfield. Played for Swallowfield in the summer, as I told you. And then it was around October, the Pepsi competition came around. And it was a step up. But not much happened. And it was a short run. But it was a different experience for me because it was the first time, obviously, playing for my school. Because previously, I went to a school that didn't compete in football. And I found that bizarre because they had so many talented players. So, it was a step up from playing for Swallowfield that year. And then, I remember preparing for that camp, though, preparing for that competition, I'd say. I think the first day I went, the coach at the time was Coach Christopher Burnett. Great coach. But I remember the first day I went, and it was just about making an impression because the year before I didn't play due to injury, and he'd been hearing about me, and obviously getting the chance to see me now. I just went all out in that training session. I was just dribbling. So it came to my surprise the next day when we played a squad game, an inter-squad game, and I was playing number 6. I was like, that was so bizarre to me because, playing street football, there's no real positions really. It's kind of the only real position there is like goalkeeper, but everywhere it's like you don't learn a lot about organization. So for you to take a guy like me, put me in the center of the pitch and tell me to run the team as a number 6, it was otherworldly at that time for me. But I think having to do that made me mature so much as a player because over the years I've grown into becoming a 10, now 8. And it was because of Coach Christopher Burnett putting me in that position where usually I'd play out on a wing where, you have a wide view of the pitch. being in there, it really brought out, my skills as a technician, but it also taught me a lot about awareness. Like you had to know where players are coming from. You had to know where your players are before you got the ball. So the decision making process is smooth, and it taught me a lot. So I'm grateful for that.
The name Pepsi, speaks bells in itself. The fact that a huge company is coming to Jamaica, coming to an island, and they don't really do that over here. They don't really do Pepsi or Coca-Cola or Fanta or whatever you want to call it competitions. They don't really tend to do that around here. Maybe there might be reasons behind that. When Pepsi have come over to you, did you see? You said there was a step up. Did you have other coaches? Was there more balls? Was there bibs? What was different for Pepsi to
Oh
come
no, so
over
maybe
to
I
what
didn't
you used
explain
to?
it properly. So I'm not entirely sure what the history is with the competition, but maybe it was that Pepsi sponsored some of the earlier competitions, because I remember being a kid and seeing kids older than me having like Pepsi sponsored jerseys. But around the time when I was playing, it wasn't a Pepsi competition. But I think them sponsoring the competition years before, the name just kind of stuck. So it's the under 14 competition. It's the under 14 competition, but here we just call it Pepsi. So
For yourself, you were
yeah,
restricted. Restricted is the word that you've said to me. And we were talking about street football earlier, the fact that you can go ahead and essentially do what you want. You've got to keep the ball close to your feet. You have to do the dribbling, which is what you're so good at. You said it was alien-like as well to be so restricted in the areas that you were so used to playing in. Street football, growing up for years in Jamaica, playing with the ball at your feet to now, 4 touches, 3 touches, pass the ball straight away. And it was the opposite to what you were so used to. That must have played an impact in your game.
it did, but it also made me so much more mature because I know, like, obviously, growing up as a kid, when I was a kid, around 2015, 16, 17, everybody loved Neymar. So I was a Neymar type of player to just get the ball, run with it, dribble, take players on. And then, obviously, being a team where you're told to stay in the number 6, take 2 touches, that was alien because you don't want to take 2 touches. You want to dribble players and, show you tricks and all that you learn playing street football. So it was hard at first because I've never played in the middle of the pitch where it's so crowded, and because it was hard and because it was so crowded and because it was alienated, it forced me to evolve where I learned how to create space for myself. I learned how to position myself better. I learned how to think ahead in the game and not just when the ball gets to my feet. And yeah, so it made me very mature. I think it was around that time where I kind of started to find like my own type of play, like style of playing. Because before that, you have your idols in football and you try to be like them, but you can never really be them. So I think changing from a winger to a midfielder at that time, it forced me to grow as a person, as a player. Yeah.
You're 19 years old. We're going to jump ahead a lot now into the unknown, into the abyss. What would you like to do? What would you like to achieve when you retire from football?
Obviously, I'd like to see Jamaica go to the next World Cup, and I'd like to be a part of that team. And every other Jamaica team going to every other World Cup after that, and hopefully win one. I think we have a long way to go in terms of, you know, building a team that wins the World Cup. And it's not talent because I don't think it's probably controversial, but I don't think there's another country in the world that has like natural talent like Jamaica. Like I've seen so many players that they didn't go to academies because there's not much academies here in Jamaica. They didn't go to academies and learn football, and no, they just got up and started kicking the ball, and what they do with the ball is just amazing. So I think talent wise, we're not short on that, you know. And you see that's the case with a lot of other teams because even Brazil, they haven't won the World Cup since 2002, memory serves me right. And they've had a lot of talented players come through, and a whole generation. They've had Neymar, Kaká, Ronaldinho, obviously, and they didn't win it. So I don't think talent is what it takes. And I believe if we really knew what it took, we would have did it already. So it's a lot of experimenting and trying things, and you know, I just hope that the country, as the years go on, will support the teams more, and I think, yeah, we find our way. As for me as a player, I've seen a lot of players over the years, winning the Ballon d'Or, winning the Golden Boy, all the individual awards. But it's never really been about that for me, you know. And I mean, it's paradoxical because I grew up also idolizing, Usain Bolt, the legend. Yeah, and track is a individual sport that actually was a track athlete sometime when I was younger. But football is a team sport, so the greatest thing for me would to see Jamaica win a World Cup. Yeah, that would be the greatest thing for me.
You're in Jamaica right now, and you may project there to be in Jamaica in a few years. But to boost your career, to boost you as a footballer, would Jamaica be the ideal goal, or would it be a move to America or even to Europe? What would be ideal? What would be realistic?
All right, so I have this philosophy that you never really know what is ideal, and I don't think your ideal in the beginning is actually what's ideal. So being here in Jamaica, where it seems there are limited opportunities, everyone here would say, okay, let me try to go here, or I have to go here to make it a possibility, when it might not be so. So I'm currently in a stage where, not with a club, I'm with Phoenix, as I told you. It's not really a club, it's an academy where you develop your talent and stuff like that. And I'm not certain on the direction or where I'll end up, but what I know is it's not really the location, it's the person. Because you can go anywhere. You can be somewhere where there's numerous opportunities and you're not the type of person to seize or see opportunities in the first place to seize them, and you miss out. So I don't think it's a place or America the great, the land of opportunities or whatever. I think it's just the type of person I have become over the years and will continue to grow into that will determine my altitude.
For me, though, what I can't really understand is how you can get yourself out there. From what we see in the UK, from what we see in America, Germany, France, it is quite easy to go ahead and get opportunities, but there is more competition. It's as simple as that. So if I wanted to go out and be a footballer, of course, there'd probably be a scout there. There might be a coach that might be able to help me out, but I'm competing against another 100 kids, 100, 200, 300 people, For yourself, is that the same? Is Jamaica the number one sport? And if so, do you know you're better than the rest, or is there still some work to be done?
What I'll say is, over the years, we've had players like Leon Bailey really, paving the way for guys like us. Like, to go out there, he's currently playing for Aston Villa in the Premier League, tearing it up. So yeah, to go out there and show the world that he's from Jamaica, and this is what obviously being a Jamaican is all about, and to do that at such a high level, it's great for kids like me because before him, they didn't. I mean, you had a few players. You had Ricardo Fuller, Stoke City, a lot of other Jamaicans playing in the Premier League. Ricardo Bibi Gardner, players like that. So, like in Jamaica, you never really know though. You can go from 0 to 100. Like, you never know who's watching. So the plan for me is to just continue to do what I'm doing now and improve on it. And yeah, you really never really know though, because last year, have you heard of Trevante Stewart? No, with Salernitana in Serie A. So
Not
Trevante Stewart,
familiar.
in
Who is
the
he?
wait, Trevante Stewart, he played in the Jamaica Premier League last year. He was the runner-up top goal scorer, and he made a direct move from the Jamaica Premier League club Mount Pleasant to go to Salernitana in Italy. It might not be that way for me, but having seen him do that, like the sky's the limit for me. Because I have so many much more years ahead.
Corruption, the big word that sticks out to me and to a lot of other people, maybe around you. And you said to me, there's beautiful sides to Jamaica, but there's also some sides that might go under the carpet, some sides that might affect people like you, ordinary people looking to get a career in any sort of industry. In a footballing term, is there corruption? And if so, what sort of corruption are we seeing?
There might be, but on a personal level, I haven't quite experienced it that much. And I think also I'm a bit too young to really understand like the history. Well, you can't be too young to understand history, but I haven't really delved into like the history of Jamaica and Jamaican football. When I get to it, I'll let you know. But in terms of corruption, I won't speak much on that because there's not much that I know. But I think like Jamaica as a nation, we have the right ingredients, to put together to do something with the talent that we have spread from every corner of the country. But we just need that system to be put in place. And yes, I wouldn't say it's corruption, it's just a lack of system, I think. Because like I said, there's not much academies, but the guys here, their eyes are being more open to academies and what it takes to actually make the transition, how to develop talents here in Jamaica, and I think it can only get better.
You mentioned Leon Bailey, and you're mentioning the rise of the Jamaican national team, which we'll go ahead and talk about in a moment. But people like Leon Bailey, Usain Bolt, these big idols, these big people that have the platform to elevate young people like yourself, the opportunities, do they ever come, maybe not necessarily to Jamaica, but are they metaphorically there? Do they help you financially, or in some ways, do they help you?
So obviously being a part of the Phoenix All-Star Football Academy, where Leon Bailey is from, yeah, he's helped. There's been trips that we've taken to Europe over the years. Germany in 2019. Last year we went to Spain earlier in the year, and then the UK and parts of Europe in the summer. Yeah, he plays a part. He gives back. He's the type of person to give back. It's actually massive for me personally because I kind of mirror myself with him. He's from the same background, the typical Jamaican household, single parent family, stuff like that. And to see his rise to where he is now, very inspirational.
When he first moved over to England, with Steven Gerrard, I had to say I was so excited to see him go from, tearing it up in Germany, as you've mentioned, to go to England. However, the first year for him was difficult. It was really difficult under Steven Gerrard, and take that what you will, but he didn't get a lot of game time. I think there was a few injuries that, caused a roadblock in the way. And I got a bit disappointed. But, as you've said, last few seasons, he's been absolutely amazing. So you've seen it that it is difficult to move. It's difficult to adapt to a different culture, although it's only a sea away. What can you learn from that journey from England, from Germany to England? The responsibilities, but also the pressure that footballers are under.
I think with him, it's just, sometimes life is never really what you think it is. So on the outside looking in, you look at it, he's a big player moving from Germany to England. Then he's also a human being. There's been a lot of history with injury since he's been in England. And yeah, the guy wants to play, but if he's injured, he can't really play. And then there's after the injury, when you're playing and there's a fear that he might get injured again, and then you actually get injured again. And I think for him, it was just like a tough mental battle. And I'm happy to see him on the other side of it now, tearing it up, finally finding his footing and showing everybody what he's made of.
You've mentioned that, you take his game into your game, skills, maybe it might be speed. What attributes do you bring to the table personally? Is it speed, is it strength alongside speed? Is it just speed? What can you tell us about yourself?
No, like for me still, I had a athletic upbringing, but I think to be an athlete in Jamaica is different to other parts of the world because here in Jamaica, obviously, there's so many fast people. So if you're not the fastest, you can't really use speed to your advantage. So I think growing up, and also growing up from the background that I am, you learn to make the best of the situations that you're put in. And obviously, growing up and being 19, I'm not the fastest 19-year-old in Jamaica. So I've learned to use my brain to play the game. So I may not be the fastest physically, but I try to be the fastest mentally, thinking in the game, try to be steps ahead, very aware. What I bring to the game is, yeah, I think my transition from being a winger, where it was just head down, dribbling, I'd end up dribbling, you get a shot off, to playing number 6, where you had to be thinking again because the guys, you're at the center of the field, so you're expected to really run the team. So you need to know where, okay, my winger is the type of player that he likes to touch his foot because he likes to run with the ball, or my winger is the type of player to run and meet the ball. Yeah, so you get to thinking a lot. And so, yeah, for me, it's just a certain vision that I developed playing street football, and my IQ. Yeah, I've spent a lot of time watching football and playing football, obviously. I've developed a sense of just like knowing the game. So for me, it's not the physical attributes. I'm not very strong. I'm not very fast, but I'm fast. I'm a fast thinker. I think on my feet, and yeah, very technical.
We go to Morocco quite often, and what we see over there is maybe something very similar to Jamaica, where there isn't a lot of facilities to be able to play football. A lot of them play street football, and when there is an opportunity to play on an AstroTurf, artificial grass or a real pitch, it's like a dream. A lot of people have kits, but they might not necessarily be authentic kits. They're getting it from the market. You also might see kids walking around barefooted asking for money, but purely because that the culture is so different. And as someone from the UK and maybe from Germany or other countries, we need to be so grateful to understand that people in Morocco, let's just base it off this, might not get the opportunity to go ahead and play in a World Cup if they would like to, purely because they don't have the people around them to be able to support them. But a lot of them are so big and strong, fast, athletical because they spend all their time training, working out, because they don't go to school. Is that a thing in Jamaica where it's work in terms of gym over school?
I think here in Jamaica, no, I think on a human level, like our primary instinct is survival. So whatever you need to do to get by, you do it. If it's to walk to school, you do it. I remember being 8 years old, going to primary school at the time, Mountain View Primary School, and on a particular morning, my family wasn't very financially stable, uh, but on a particular morning, I remember my mom only having $60 Jamaica at that time. And I remember just at the time being very enthusiastic about school and enthusiastic about school. And I tell her that, if it's $60, you get stuff it. And my mom, she's like a miracle worker because even though she only had $60, and even if it wasn't enough dinner for everybody to eat, there was dinner for the kids to eat. I'd grow up and I'd see her like endure a lot of hunger and just so that we could eat. And I really admire her, and I've grown to see in myself where, that made me very appreciative of opportunities. I'm not a very wasteful person, and I tend to think ahead. That even when I get money now, I don't just splurge it because there's a certain way of thinking now where you're not sure where the next one is coming from, being from where I'm from. So yeah, you get smart, you get really smart.
Let's move on to Jamaica, the national team, what we were talking about earlier. We can now deep dive into what is essentially a huge few years for the national team. 2026 is what the Jamaican FA have said they would like to achieve is a World Cup qualification, something they've only done once in 1998. Let's talk about the group that you're going to be competing against to have a spot in the next World Cup. Dominican Republic, you have Dominica, and you have Guatemala. They're not very good. You'd think Jamaica would surely top that, right?
for me, I tend to focus on us. So it's now 2024. The work is 2026. Qualify starting soon. So for me, it's about how do we get the proper players that we have now. Obviously, we have a lot of experienced players. You mentioned Mikel Antonio, obviously William Bailey in the Premier League, and Demarai Gray joining us the other day, being fantastic for us. So I think for us, it's about focusing on what we have and how do we use to the best of our ability what we have already. And I think it's kind of set up for us to go because all the rest of the teams, we're kind of one of the better teams in the qualifiers right now, one of the top ranked teams. I mean, USA, the United States of America, uh, Mexico, and Canada, they've already secured their spots in the qualifiers, obviously. And they used to be the ones that used to top the group 1, 2, 3, and we kind of just fall short. So I think with them being out of the picture, it's kind of set up for us to go to the World Cup. So it would be criminal for us to not be in the next World Cup. Very confident that would be there.
I'm really excited actually to see it in, especially America. A
Yeah,
place where people look up and think the American dream, this amazing country that people essentially are never upset because they got all the money or they've got all the accessibilities to everything. And for me, it'll be so interesting to see. In a way, it'll be interesting because you've got to think that Qatar was such a small place. You're thinking about
yeah,
the World Cup being held in one country, now three, and not just one country. America in itself, you could call 10 countries. The space in between them is it's
basically,
going to be
yeah,
it's going to be a killer, I think, especially for a team. Let's say you're a fan and you might support England, for example, and you're going to all the games and you've got tickets for all the games, as expensive as that might be. And you start in Mexico, all the group games are in Mexico. Then all of a sudden you travel to Canada for the what is it? What would it be? Round of 36 maybe. Then you go to the round of 16. It's just like traveling, and maybe FIFA haven't quite thought about the money of the fans behind that. And I do think that that's a shame for Jamaicans, for other people who want to support their team, but now have to pay out all this money, not just for the tickets, not just for the hotels, but now traveling around half a continent.
3 countries. Yeah. I mean, I won't dive into that early. I think it will just be different because obviously over in America they call football soccer. So
Which isn't right, by the way. Which is
I
not
mean,
right
yeah.
at all.
So so this World Cup, I think it will just be different because they're not very enthusiastic about what we call football here. So it will kind of be bringing football to America. I mean, it's already there. They're developing. The US team is fantastic, but the country as a whole and the stance on football, I think this World Cup is a chance to kind of spread. Yeah,
I do think that Jamaica, from what you've been telling me, and the other side of the world is completely different to our style of football. Not just the style, the way that you've been brought up. Some people, we see a lot of players like Jadon Sancho, for example, who has been given this chance to play for Manchester United after thriving in Germany. So what happened, all this drinking, all these whatever it was, and
yeah.
he wouldn't even apologise because it was money over football, and he was still happy to get £500,000 a week by just doing absolutely nothing. And for Jamaicans, you don't really see that. For people that are coming from similar backgrounds, you never see that. You see people that are thankful for the opportunity on the daily. Mohamed Salah is and Sadio Mane, they're such idols for what they do because they're so humble. They give back to their communities. You see with all of the English players, just to name a few, they could not care less about their hometown or about giving back to the community on an average. It's more Jamaicans, it's more Moroccans, it's more people elsewhere in the world that are so grateful for this opportunity. But would you say that's a bigger thing to have? It's a bigger element to have than the skill itself? Because if you have that determination, the drive, like you have to understand your opportunities that you've been given, do you understand that that might help you more in a tournament?
I mean, on the Jadon Sancho matter, I wouldn't say it's a money over football type of thing because we're humans and stuff happens. And I think he would very much like to play at his time in Manchester United. Obviously, he's in Dortmund now, where he seems to be having a lot of fun. So I wouldn't say it's a money over football thing. It's football is just very emotional, and yeah, it's a game of passion. And I don't know what's the inside on Jadon Sancho and whatever happened at Man United, but I don't think it's just money over football for him. But I think also, being in Jamaica, you're very appreciative of everything because you have, like, growing up, you have a sense of community. Like, the community raises a child in Jamaica. Like, your parents doesn't really have to be, your parents don't really have to be present all the time for you to feel like there's parents around because everybody kind of looks out. So obviously, when you move from rags to riches, you have a natural sense of showing appreciation for the people that helped you along the way. And why I won't say as well with the UK football, I wouldn't make a comparison because you have guys like Raheem Sterling. He's a Jamaican born player, left here when he was younger, and now he's playing for England and big player, and he does a lot for his community here in Jamaica. So yeah.
You can mention Mikel Antonio, which is a big name in itself. Leon Bailey, these great players playing in European competitions in some of the biggest countries in the world, some of the biggest stadiums in the world, and a really good fan base behind them as well. Aston Villa speaks for itself. Such a worldwide name, global name, maybe because of Unai Emery, maybe because of Leon Bailey, because of the whole team. The aim of the Jamaican FA is to really secure this World Cup, and they don't want to get complacent by seeing Guatemala on the list, all these lower countries that might not have a chance as much as Jamaica. Jamaica really should be going to the next World Cup if you're going to be realistic. Damari Gray, of course, is now Jamaican. Talk to me about Rico Henry, Max Aarons, Morgan Gibbs-White, these players that are just maybe good enough for England, but Jamaica would like them a bit more.
I think with those players, it's a big plus because obviously they'd spend like the majority of their careers playing a higher level of football, and I wouldn't say coming to play for Jamaica is a step down. No, I think what it means to wear the colors of the Jamaican flag on the jersey, and what it means to be a part of a team that represents a people that's very patriotic, and obviously the strong history that we have here in Jamaica. I mean, I think it means a lot to them, even though they weren't brought up here in Jamaica, and they're not very aware on the upbringing and all of that. I think it's still a big thing for them, and it's even bigger for us because now we have all that talent at our dispense, and we kind of just have to put it together in a system now, a working system that strives.
So if you don't qualify for this World Cup and it's a calamity and Mikel Antonio is not going to probably be around, these big names might start to retire, might start to drop out of football. What would you expect from the Jamaican FA? Would you expect a sacking of the manager? What would you expect to happen? There must need a revamp if they're not going to qualify versus Guatemala and Dominican Republic.
I think Jamaica as a country, we're very forward thinking, so it will be a shocker. And it will be a big disappointment to not be at this World Cup, and obviously when the odds are in our favor and we have such great talent at our dispense now. But we're very forward thinking, as I said, and there's people in the country now, they're becoming more aware of how good football is for the country. And they've been taking steps. There's academies everywhere, and like I told you, there's just talent popping up everywhere around the country. There's a lot of players. They just touch the ball and it's like magic. And I think with the combination of the talent that will come along with the system that's building around the country, I think if not this one, then the next one. And when we do get to the next one, it will be a continual thing. We'll be regular faces there. But we're definitely going to this one, though.
And where would you expect Jamaica to finish in this World Cup of 2026?
Well, Jamaica goes to the World Cup winning, though.
You're that confident?
Yeah, it doesn't sound realistic, but it's never real until it happens, But we have that belief of the country.
And lastly, one more question from me. When you finish and hang up the boots, whether that be early, whether that be later in your career, maybe 30s, maybe even 40s, I mean, that might sound a bit unrealistic, but you never know. Where would you expect to see yourself? Would you expect to see yourself as a coach, maybe as a mentor for the youth players?
I mean, definitely that will be a part of it, but ultimately, at 36, you're an old man in football, but you're young in life. So at that point, I'll be 36, and I've gone through 36 years of life, twice the age I am now. So yeah, I mean, I'll experience a lot throughout the time, and maybe the way I'm thinking now will change. It will definitely change. So I could see myself in finance or owning some big companies, but definitely I'd love to coach because I had a short spell the other day coaching U14s and U16s with the Mona Maninka team as well. And it was great, being on the sideline and being in a position where I've been the captain before, and obviously I'm a leader on the team, but like being in a position where, you're the coach now and you have to think tactics, you have to plan training sessions, you have to make sure stuff is in order. Stuff you neglect as a player that just come to training and train and comes to games. Yeah, it had me thinking differently, and I actually fell in love with, handling players. Like I've seen some players that I've coached the other day. I see myself in them. You know, I see myself in them in the fact that they're young now, and I was that young kid once, learning the game and loving the game, and to be with players on that level, even though, obviously I'm headed forward into playing professional football. It's very nice. It's very nostalgic. Yeah.
What sort of coach would you be? Would you be the what's it called? The jumping up and down coach? Would you be the quieter coach? Would you be more man to man, more open to the players? What sort of coach would you be? And would it be different?
Probably a mixture because how I am as a person is just, I'd just say I'm normal. I'm not the over enthusiastic type of person, but I can get enthusiastic about what I do. And as well as I'm very reasonable, I'm very open to, sharing experiences. And I think my experiences helped the players a lot the other day because obviously I'm a midfielder, so coaching a U40 midfielder, you just have to listen because there's so many more years of experience that I have. And also just looking at him and seeing the player that I was, it's actually beautiful to see how a player like that will develop. It's very interesting to see how that player will develop.
Do you think the Jamaican style of football's changed? But maybe where the pace of the game might be a bit slower. I mean, you've mentioned that you were looking at these 14-year-old kids and you're watching them play football. Did you expect something that maybe you didn't quite see?
No, I think at the age of 14, you don't expect a fully functioning team that passes the ball like a Manchester City in modern football now. I think what you look for at that age is the players that kind of just have that spark that, knows how to get out of those situations. And yeah, obviously there'll be some leaders at that age, but I think predominantly at 14, you're not really aware of the type of player you actually are. You don't know your potential and all of that. It's kind of just, recreation. Just playing into the next action. And at that age, I just look for that player that just, impacts the game, takes the ball, dribbles a player, lets go a beautiful pass. Yeah, stuff like that.
So then, it's been an absolute pleasure, Carlos, to talk to you for the last hour or so. To end on a high note, what team in the Premier League would you like to play for? Would it be Leon Bailey's Aston Villa? Would it be Manchester United, Liverpool? What would it be? What would be the ideal Premier League team for you?
I won't talk Premier League because I'm actually a La Liga fan myself.
Okay, so what La Liga team?
Yeah, Barcelona. Sure.
Wow. That would
Barcelona.
be such a great team to play for. Such a prestigious history. Well,
Good
Carlos,
man.
the future Barcelona Jamaican national team captain. Let's throw all of it in there. I wish you all the best, Carlos. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you about Jamaican football, everything there is about your career, and I wish you all the best.
Cheers, man. I think you should come to Jamaica as well.
Well, of course, one day you never ever know. I might be there with you. You never know, playing a bit of football.
You never know.